It is also about the way in which it can equalize standards and enable access for all, resulting in the democratization of education. Ladies and gentlemen, we have Mr. Sumit Mehta, co-founder and CEO of LEAD, a 9-year-old unicorn startup that provides integrated curriculum and technology solutions to private schools. Ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for Mr. Sumit Mehta.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I hope everyone had a good break. There's still some people trooping in and out. I think Harsha and Vidya did a good job of telling you how to build a decacorn and a unicorn. So I thought I'll do something different, which might be less glamorous, which will not make you as rich, but hopefully is better for the country. I wanted to talk about how do we build a confident India, and I wanted to interweave my journey of an entrepreneur and how did we build Lead School. So a little bit of a backstory first. 15 years back, I was based in Singapore, and every time I would visit India, I would be hit with two emotions. One was a feeling of despair that nothing is changing and at the speed that I want. And second was a feeling of guilt that I wasn't able to do much about it. And every time I would go back to Singapore, where I was running the Asia Pacific beauty care business for Procter & Gamble, I would feel envy that this small country, which got independence around the same time as India, has leapfrogged to become a developed nation, not only in terms of GDP per capita, but also in terms of education indices. And our country is still kind of staying behind. So that began a long journey of research on what really develops countries and how do nations become confident to become superpowers. And my belief was that India, with its large human capital, needed to achieve its rightful place amongst the world's superpowers. So, if these slides work, hopefully it will, and if they don't, great. Technology takes time, but hopefully it works. 1/4 of India in terms of population, but 8 times India in terms of GDP. And that set me thinking that why is it that an average American is 32 times more productive than an average Indian? Those of you doing the math in your head, 8 times 4 is 32. And I thought about it and said, it's not technology, it's not infrastructure, it's not anything else. It's about the human capital of each country. And we don't have to look far versus looking at a 6-year-old who is born in India and a 6-year-old who is born in the US and imagine their education journeys for the next 12 years. And you would start to find the answer. And that set me thinking that if the 270 million students who go to school in India every year, if we are able to give them the opportunities to achieve their true potential, at the same time, as the 50 million students who go to school in the US, then what's possible? Because the truth is, talent is equally distributed, but opportunity is not. And if we could equally distribute opportunity amongst the 270 million students in India, then we could truly give them the confidence to succeed in life. And when our students become confident to succeed in life, then India can become confident to succeed. So that was the genesis of my journey to move back from Singapore to India in 2007 and begin to work in education. Now, whenever we talk about transformation in education, EdTech jumps up as a big solution, right? People think that, beam classes across over TV or send videos over YouTube or send PDFs over WhatsApp nowadays, and you will be able to transform education. So I want to tell you a story which I read at that time. How many of you have read Mahabharata? Most of you, I'm assuming, right? So there's this story of the Kauravas and the Pandavas who go to Dronacharya in his Gurukul, right? And then there's a story of Eklavya, who was not able to go to the Gurukul. And very often this story is told in terms of exclusion, how Dronacharya did not include a student who was from the tribal areas, underprivileged, into his Gurukul. I see the story differently. I wonder, why did the 100 Kauravas and 5 Pandavas have to go to a Gurukul to study under the tutelage of a Guru? But there was only one Eklavya who was able to study remotely, self-learning. And the truth is that most students, especially in younger age, are not capable of doing remote learning and doing self-learning. Because education is a contact sport and its playground is the school in the presence of a guiding teacher, right? And that is why there were 105 of them doing in-person learning and there was only one Eklavya who was doing remote learning. There is a learning there. So therefore, it is very clear that if Indian education has to transform, Indian schools have to transform. Because if you think about it, a child spends 6 hours in a school every day, 5 days a week, right? And if you could use those 6 hours really well, then we can fulfill the true objective and purpose of education, which is not just to do rote learning or pass exams. It is to build capable adults who can live in an uncertain world. It is to build responsible citizens who can build a better India. And most importantly, good human beings who can live in harmony with each other and with the earth. Now, the other problem hit me that when we think about transforming schools and we think about teachers, everybody thinks teacher training, let's train the teachers. So one more insight. Those of you who've traveled inside the Hyderabad city would see that very few people follow traffic rules there. And you would also see people being very nonchalant about spitting, right? When these same people used to come to Singapore, very well behaved. Nobody spits. Everybody follows traffic rules. And why even go to Singapore? Even if you go to the Hyderabad airport, the same person will behave properly, look for a dustbin and throw the garbage. So my big learning was that training does not change behaviors. Systems change behaviors. So therefore, if we have to transform schools in India, teacher training is not going to work. Consultants are not going to work. We really have to build a new operating system for schools in this country. Now, it is easier said than done. So what I did, along with my co-partner, was visit some of the best schools in the world, whether it was US, Finland, Singapore, and some of the best schools in India, and try to figure what was the operating system that they were using to really be good, and how could we then leverage those learnings, codify them, contextualize it for India, and build an operating system for our country. Those learnings told me that basically there are 5 things you need in such a system. The first one, it has to meet the needs of all stakeholders in school. It cannot just be about teacher training. It has to serve the need of the teacher, the student, the principal, the owner. Second, it has to impact all workflows. Most technologies in school make a ERP or a messaging system or a transport tracking system, but that's not what a school is about, right? School at the core is about teaching and learning, so all workflows have to be managed. Technology is not the only answer, because sometimes we think of technology as a panacea. You have to have a combination of physical and digital. Then you got to ensure that what happens in school is connected to what is happening at home. Most Indian students go to tuitions where the tuition teacher is doing her own thing and what is happening in school is something else, and nobody connects it for them. And lastly, you've got to use technology in creating knowledge graphs and data codes so that everything is integrated. So if you think about it, whether it is connecting the dots from Mahabharata to my personal experiences of visiting India versus Singapore, or whether it is about deeply worrying about a problem, by doing all of this and then figuring out what were the exemplar situations across the world, what were the great schools in the world doing, we built what I call an operating system for schools in India. Like, this is what LEAD has built, which is, if you give me a school, within 6 months, through our operating system, we can transform that school into an institution which will build the skills in the students, which will give them the confidence to succeed in life, because that is what the purpose of schooling is, right? Today, we are able to do that for 1.4 million students. we are able to see visible differences in their outcomes, whether it is conceptual understanding, whether it is collaboration skills, whether it is thinking skills, whether it is communication skills. We are able to work with 50,000 teachers across 3,500 schools across the country. And whether it is students, whether it is teachers, whether it is parents, whether it is school owners, each of their lives are getting improved through building the operating system for schools in India. And my big learning out of all this, for the last 15 years we've been working in education, and for the last 10 years we built LEAD, is that if you really deeply care about a problem which is large enough, and do whatever it takes not to just think of solutions as inverse of problems, but to apply system thinking in solving deep-rooted problems, then you can have a large outcome. And at LEAD, even though I said we are serving 1.4 million students, India has 270 million students. So we're just getting started. There's a long way to go. I don't even know whether in my lifetime we'll be able to solve this problem. But what we're doing is building LEAD as an organization on the right values and culture, so that that organization outlives us and continues to attack this problem, and that organization will solve the problem. Because if we are able to give students the skills that will build in them the confidence to succeed in life, then these confident kids will build a confident India. Thank you. Questions? Education tugs at everybody's hearts because all of us have gone to school, and some of us are parents.
Good morning, great talk. My name is Lavanyam. I think education has been one of the biggest changes prior to COVID or during COVID that has taken place. We see children suffering right now. Shouldn't we have sit down and change the curriculum? What we've done right now is the same old wine in new bottle. Same curriculum, same syllabus, but a different methodology of teaching it. Shouldn't we have changed curriculums and the processes on how we deliver it, rather than just using technology and teaching the same stuff?
Yeah. I completely agree with you that technology is just not a means of transmitting the same knowledge to students. Technology actually can be a big catalyst of change in also what is taught. Actually, what the government has done with the new education policy 2020 is a massively important and positive step. I think over the next 3-4 years, we will see the impact of it in both schools and classrooms. So most changes in the government do take time because it is a large system. But I'm very hopeful with the initial steps that the government has taken with the new education policy, because there is actual curriculum reform, actual pedagogical reform built into the new education policy. So let's see how it turns out. And at LEAD, we are very, very positive and committed to partnering with the government in bringing that change to life.
Good afternoon. My name is Vidya Chowdhury. I'm at a place where there's a dichotomy in my mind, which is where I'm asking you this question, and I hope you can give me some kind of a lead to move in the right direction. I represent an organization called Akshaya Patra. We serve 18 million meals a day for the last 22 years to school-going children. We wanted to solve the problem of hunger, not at a global level, but from 150 children a day, we've gone to 18 million children a day. And we've served over 3 billion meals, and we are the world's largest. That was an NGO effort. So after a couple of years into our operation, all the big corporates who wanted to join the bandwagon of doing good came to us. So we've come to a stage where once our erstwhile president Abdul Kalam told us, you've done enough Annadan, do Vidyadan. Target the mid-segment children, mid-income level children to become global players. Don't make them rote learners. So we've started a social initiative which is a partly funded, partly paid for global chain of schools called Basilwood Internationals. But now the dilemma is people say, oh, you're supposed to be in charity. Now you're in a fee-taking social impact. How can we help you? Now, if you were in my shoes, how would you generate help for Basilwood schools who are base of the line fee taking but top of the line international schools giving global education to Indian children?
You're asking consultation for free, but I'll try. I think first, I don't think Annadan is disconnected from Vidyadan, because without food in the child's stomach, they're not ready to learn. So I think what Akshay Patra is doing and what the government's midday meal scheme does is a really important component of providing education. Now, coming to your question of, how should you solve this dilemma? We were in this dilemma 10 years back, because when we began our schools are not for profit in India. The big question at that point was, Smita, my co-founder, was running a non-profit called Sparsh, and they used to run Anganwadis in Mumbai. Our big learning was that if the end user is not seeing value enough in your solution to be willing to pay what you're asking for, then you're going to be eternally dependent on a donor. And donor-dependent models, at least that is my personal belief, not many people agree, are not long-term sustainable. For two reasons. One is the donor might change their mind, but the more pernicious reason is that there is always conflict that is built into the connection, because the donor's desire can sometimes be in conflict with the end customer's requirement. So what I have found is that we built Lead as a social enterprise, which is that it will be for profit because then I'm not dependent on donors. But it will be designed at a price which my end consumer can pay. And I have to have the intellectual and moral integrity to deliver the quality that I know will improve their life. So the short answer to your long question is that ultimately I think the pricing and the cost have to work in a way which is affordable to your end consumer and can cover the expenses of building a great solution. Some of the schools who are not able to do it actually use the Lead system because we have built it for scale. So rather than every school having to spend that money, Lead spends that money and then defrays it over 10,000 schools. So every school has to pay only a penny. I don't know whether it directly helped, but those are my thoughts. Yes, sir. Yes, if you speak loud enough, I'll be able to hear.
When you said there is a balance between physical and digital, I understand and believe technology is the answer, but that's my understanding and my belief. But whenever we go out, whether it is an IIT Bombay or is it JNTU Hyderabad, there's a strong resistance to technology. It's always physical. Get your teachers here, get your mentors here, get your leaders here, teach them in class, and more of, have the digital element minimal. It could be in forms of assessment or whatever it is, but whether you want someone from Google, Apple, Facebook, Tesla, or you want from Microsoft, Amazon, everybody needs to be here. So when you are designing Lead and when you are making your future plans for next 5-10 years, I definitely feel technology is the answer. But do you also see this roadblock at school level? That invariably there's a strong resistance to accept technology. A, because people who are leading and running the school don't understand it in the first place. And second, when the kids go back home, be it your school students or my college students, technology means Netflix and Amazon. It doesn't mean real assessment platform or Cantilever Labs assessment platform. So what do you think about technology maybe?
It's a really complicated question to answer in 1 minute, which she's giving me.
I will
but let me just answer.
You after this also.
I think for the benefit of the larger audience, I just wanted to make one point that very often when we think of technology in education, we frame technology as a replacement of the teacher or as a way of improving access. I don't think that's the best use of technology in education. The best use of technology in education is to empower the teacher, because left to her own device, a teacher will use her voice, which leads to auditory learning, which leads to then rote learning. I think how technology can empower a teacher is by ensuring learning becomes multimodal. So use all the devices of AR, VR, audiovisual, and then personalize through assessments and then remedials. So all research in EdTech across the world has shown that the best use of technology is in empowering teachers and personalizing learning, not in circumventing the teacher. But that's my short answer to your long question. We can, of course, talk later.
Much, Sumit. Ladies and gentlemen, that was the last question. He'll be available at the networking lounge. You can bombard him with all the questions that you have. Sumit, please join us in the middle of the stage. I request Ms. Rakshan from THub to please hand over a token of our gratitude to Mr. Sumit Mehta. Thank you so much.